CJ7FPW, Dallas Repeater. Just trying to get a signal report, see if I'm needed in the repeater.
This is KF5JHA, the signal check. I'm sorry, I missed your call, son. You're sounding very good.
Thank you, sir. This is Kilo Juliet 7, Foxtrot Papa Whiskey. I'm down in Ellis County. I don't use the Dallas Repeater a whole lot, but the way these storms are coming in, I figured I better make sure I was hitting Dallas and hitting Tarrant County just so I could listen. Thank you, sir.
Ham Fixin's Nets, first and third Monday, 7 p.m., W5FC. W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is KF5PDS. My name is Billye, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign, break, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 MHz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list, and remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check in to the net electronically by going to the club website, w5fc.org, look for tonight's Skynet announcement, and click on the hot link to check in. We will acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry, if you want to check in via voice, we'll continue to do that too over air and Echolink. All amateur radio operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts: general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, Was Up, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and our 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. We currently have the following people checked in via w5fc.org. We have Tom, KU5ICX, Corpus Christi on the All-Star link, KF5JHA, Chaz and Bob the Cat in Mesquite, multiple modes, N5BB, Bill in Irving, over-air radio, AA5AH, Robert in Richardson, online YouTube, NT5TM, Tony, East Dallas, over-air radio, N5LIG, Dale in Dallas, online Echolink, and N5 Oscar Foxtrot, Clay in Mesquite, online YouTube. Now let's start with voice check-ins, starting with short time check-ins. If you're a short time to this evening's net, please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from this evening. Okay, not hearing any short time, so we'll move on to general check-ins. If you're checking into this evening's net, please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting.
This is Whiskey Bravo 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra Gus, far northeast Dallas, HT low power with a 5/8 wave antenna in the window.
November Victor 5 Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth.
All right, we'll pause to recognize those stations. We've got WB4MFI, Ted in Dallas, low power. W5GUS, Gus, far northeast Dallas, caught the low power and it sounded like a really cool antenna set up in the window. And NV5F, Virginia in Fort Worth. Do we have any other general check-ins for this evening's net? If so, please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from this evening.
This is Alpha Golf 9er Sierra Golf, Antonio in Dallas, AG9SG.
November 5, Mike Tango Victor, Chad, Garland. Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill Farmers Branch. November 5.
Okay, let me catch those. We've got Alpha Golf 9 Sierra Golf, Antonio in Dallas, Chad in Garland. I just caught November 5 of your call sign. If you could repeat your call sign one more time, that would be great.
November 5, Mike Tango Victor. Over.
Copy that. November 5, Mike Tango Victor, Chad and Garland. Thank you very much, sir. And KF5ZDL, Bill and Farmers Branch. And it sounded like there was another November 5 station calling, but it cut off and I didn't get the complete call or your name or QTH. So if you could come again with your information, call sign name, where you're transmitting from, that would be great.
November 5, Kilo Romeo Golf. Name is Kevin. Mobile, southbound Richardson.
All right, N5KRG, Kevin Richardson Mobile. Caught you that time. Do we have any other general check-ins for this evening's net? If so, please come with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Looking at Echolink, we've already got all the folks that are on Echolink checked in via other methods and modes. So I'll open it up for an open round check-in. So if anyone would like to check into this evening's net but have not had a chance to do so, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, not hearing any more, so we'll go ahead and move on with our program. Welcome all to Skynet. So let's start with general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If you have a general announcement, please come now with your call sign.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
NT5TM, Tony, good evening. What announcements do you have for us this evening?
Good evening, Billy. Tonight's Afterglow movie discussion will focus on a television pilot, The Day After Tomorrow, Into Infinity. I like saying that in a funny voice. The pilot is from 1975. It has the most up-tempo music in the history of television, and it's available for free on YouTube. It's only 47 minutes long. Now, this net is going to be a lot better than that movie, but if you have to be away from your radio for 47 minutes, The Day After Tomorrow, Into Infinity could be a good viewing choice. Please don't forget that we have GeekNet coming up this Monday at 7 p.m. on this repeater. Anything that you like to geek out about, ham radio related or not, is welcome as a topic. We also welcome news that's geeky or just plain weird, and any good questions that you've got. You know, it's GeekNet. It's just for fun. Finally, I know Billy is great about this, but for everyone else, please make sure to take regular breaks when you're transmitting tonight. There's a chance I might have to call a Racy's net for weather conditions. Fortunately, the threat tonight is coming from the slowest moving supercell I have ever seen. I mean, that thing's been in Jet County for like 4 hours. So we're probably fine. I kind of want to scold it because it's such a lazy thunderstorm. It should get moving. Anyway, NT5TM, back to net.
Great. Thank you very much, Tony. Got a few announcements here myself. AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 3 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time, you can check into the National AMSAT Net. Learn all about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT Net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You will need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. 2 local nets are available in Dallas. Both of these nets encourage active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net control as well as others checked in. AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9. Tuesdays, Tom N5HYP is the net control. All are welcome to check in. The first Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club Night, so there's no AMSAT East on that night. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The DARC hosts a number of nets on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. You can check the W5FC.org website. And as Tony mentioned, this coming Monday at 7 p.m. will be GeekNet. This Monday, we will geek out beyond ham radio. We expand the topics to include computers, science, space, news of the weird, and much more. No topic is off limits just as long as it's geeky. Tony NT5TM will be the net control. Saturdays are the Night of Nets, where we keep the airwaves buzzing until midnight. Here's the lineup. TechNet from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Q&A on all things ham radio related. There's also a swap meet, Rookie's Corner, news and information, and ham radio events and contests, alternating net control each week. Skynet from 9 to 10:30 p.m. Astronomy, space, and space exploration are the topics. Also news and information, satellite passes, and the Constellation of the Week. Join this popular net about ham's second most favorite hobby, astronomy, alternating net controls. And as Tony mentioned, from 10:30 to midnight, we have the Afterglow movie net. Will it be a hit or the dreaded miss? Thumbs up or thumbs down? You make the call. We watch an assigned science fiction movie and then review it for about 90 minutes. We discuss plot, characterization, special effects, music, and answer the question, will I dare watch this movie ever again? Everyone is welcome to check in, even if you haven't seen the movie, which might actually be a plus. First and third Sundays is the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. What's going on in your ham world? Tell us. Also, learn about the club that maintains this popular repeater, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. Club news and information, events, activities, including club meetings, lecture and lab, public service events, contests, and just general discussion. Everyone can check into this net. And daily is the ARRLNet National Traffic System Training Net every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Learn how message traffic is handled on this formal training net. Newbies are welcome to check in as this is a training net. The NTS also conducts an evening net on the Irving Whiskey Alpha 5 Charlie Kilo Foxtrot repeater 146.72 megahertz at 9:30 p.m. All are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And as promised, at 10:30 p.m. is the Afterglow movie net. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, so he can give us tonight's Afterglow info from KF5PDS.
Thank you, Billye, and this is KE5ICX down in Corpus Christi. I'm Tom.
So here's my highly accurate information on tonight's Afterglow movie, which Tony mentioned a little bit earlier. The Antares was a special spaceship. It was designed to fly to Alpha Centauri, our neighboring sun. Equipped with what was learned from string theory, the spacecraft was billed as able to travel the speed of light. However, realizing the entire craft was designed by Gary Anderson, it soon became apparent that string theory was more about hanging a tiny spacecraft from marionette strings and pulling it along with a series of small explosive M80s, identical to the ones your dad warned you about while growing up. It'll blow your fingers off. The spacecraft would probably lose a lot of flimsy plastic pieces while going to warp. Anyways, Gary was well versed in puppet propulsion, and this spaceship was going to use it. Join us for the virtually unknown Gary Anderson TV project Plot, The Day After Tomorrow Beyond Infinity from 1975. That's tonight at 10:30 p.m. And it's only 47 minutes long? Something like that. Back to you, Billy. This is KE5 ICS.
Thanks, Tom. This is KF5PDS, Billye, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. You can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, W5FC.org. So looking over at our check-in sheet, we don't have any new check-ins, so I'll take additional voice check-ins. If you have not had a chance this evening yet to check into this evening's net, please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton.
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton. Got you checked in. Anyone else out there that would like to check into this evening's net? If so, come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, not hearing any other check-ins. So let's go to our next segment, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Chaz, KF5JHA. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Thank you, Billy. Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. On April the 24th, that was last night, was the last Texas Astronomical, well, not the last one ever, but that was the one that just passed, was the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. The meeting was held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and there was also a Zoom component. The featured speaker was Dr. John Steele. His topic was early history of astronomy. Went back to Babylonian times. Wow. Now, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas also hosts Saturday night public observing stations in this area. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing stations. Currently on the fourth Saturday of the month, that's tonight, there are no scheduled stargazings. And if there were, it'd probably be canceled because of the clouds and thunderstorms in the area. You can check the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing stations. That was slide number 1. I'm talking about slides. There's a video version of Skynet. Video version of Skynet can be accessed by going to the W5FC.org website. Click on the YouTube video version, and you can see what the pictures are that we're talking about. So slide number 2. What would you call a week-long gathering of hundreds of astronomical and amateur professional astronomers from all over the world in one of the darkest skies in North America. Well, it's called the Texas Star Party, of course. This annual event's been going on for decades, in fact, since 1979, near Fort Davis, Texas, that is. I've attended about half of the annual get-togethers since 2006. You can expect observing under dark skies at night, sleeping in the mornings, professional and amateur presentations in the afternoon and evenings, private behind-the-scenes tours of the Donald Observatory, horseback riding if you must or want. And there is even a ham radio shack at the for people like us, the amateur radio operators that we can use. This year, the Texas Star Party, runs from Sunday, May the 10th through Saturday, May the 16th. For more information or details about the event, you can go to texasstarparty.org. I will probably be missing Skynet on Saturday, May the 9th and Saturday, May the 16th due to my travel to the Texas Star Party. Someone else will need to impersonate Chaz. Yeah, let's see if you can do that. And cover my segments on those Saturdays. So this is KF5JHA, back to our net control.
Great. Thank you, Chaz. This is KF5PDS Billye, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Our next up is National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Bill, N5BB. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Thank you, Billy. This is N5BB. It's kind of a busy night if any of you are watching TV. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box and request access. I happen to be the membership director and the vice president of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. This North Texas chapter meets at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month at Spring Creek Barbecue on Highway 183 in Irving. Our next chapter meeting will be on Sunday, May the 10th. On the last Friday evening of each month at 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous at Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. You do not need to be a member of any organization to attend. 7 people attended the April event last night. Unfortunately, I could not be there. The next Space Rendezvous will be held on Friday, May the 29th. The big National Space Society event each year is the International Space Development Conference. This is called ISDC. ISDC 2026 will be held in McLean, Virginia, not far from Washington, D.C. The dates are June the 4th to 7th of 2026. That's a Thursday. It's the first Thursday through the following Sunday of June. You can find out more and sign up to attend at isdc.nss.org. It's isdc.nss.org. If you have any, by the way, I'm going to be driving up there. So I have a long trip to go up there to that meeting and another one in Buffalo, New York. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill, November 5 Bravo Bravo, at his QRZ-listed email address, or at space@byram.net, SPACE DYROM.net. That's all I've got. This is N5BB. Back to the net. Thank you, Billy.
Great, thank you very much, Bill. All right, next up is discussion topic of the evening. So for tonight's topic, I've decided to discuss NASA's CLARREO Pathfinder mission. So CLARREO Pathfinder, CPF, Advancing Earth Science Through Unprecedented Accuracy. This information is on science.nasa.gov. CLARREO Pathfinder's data will help us better understand the Earth's changing system. CLARREO Pathfinder, or CPF, data will do this by taking highly accurate measurements of sunlight reflected by Earth and the Moon. These measurements, which will be anchored to international standards, will be 5 to 10 times more accurate than those from existing sensors. CPF will have the unique ability to maintain its high accuracy throughout its lifetime. It will also showcase novel techniques in transferring its high accuracy to other sensors monitoring Earth. Higher accuracy means greater certainty in our measurements, which makes it possible to detect changes in Earth's system decades sooner than otherwise possible. So just a quick mission overview. This is also on science.nasa.gov. The CLARREO Pathfinder mission officially began in 2016 with a directive to achieve two primary mission goals: measure Earth-reflected sunlight with an unparalleled accuracy of 0.3%, which is a 5 to 10 times improvement over existing reflected solar sensors, and two, serve as an on-orbit intercalibration reference to other orbiting sensors. The high-accuracy, spectrally resolved measurements CPF will take are critical to identify the physical nature of Earth's variability. CPF's unprecedented accuracy, traceable to international standards, and its high spatial and spectral resolution also ideally positions CPF to serve as an on-orbit calibration reference to other RS instruments. This is essential because most reflected solar instruments experience on-orbit degradation with extended exposure to the extreme space environment. Alternatively, CPF has been designed to be resilient to such on-orbit degradation with frequent on-orbit calibration measurements. A major element of the CPF payload is a reflected solar spectrometer called HISIX, and developed by the Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics, LASP. The CPF payload will be hosted on the International Space Station and is planned to take measurements for 1 year. An additional year is included in the project for data analysis. There's a lot more information that you can look at there on that website, science.nasa.gov. And there's also the website for LASP, the Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics. You can go to lasp.colorado.edu. So there's a brief introduction to the CLARREO Pathfinder mission. Does anyone have any questions or have any comments for tonight's presentation? If so, please come now with your call sign. All right, so let's go ahead and move over to Was Up. So at this time, I'm going to return the net to Chaz, KF5JHA. The net is yours again from KF5PDS.
Thank you, Billy. Good evening once again, everyone. Slide Master, slide number 3. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. We call this segment of Skynet What Is Up because it's all about what has gone on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. Slide Master, slide number 4. We've talked about the predicted nova of the star T Corona Borealis, which could erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude. I just checked a little while ago, which is much too faint to be seen with just your 2 eyes. T Corona Borealis was supposed to go nova more than a year and a half ago. One recent prediction was for it to go nova November the 10th, 2025. Well, that didn't happen. So another prediction is on June the 25th of this year, 2026, plus or minus a couple of days. Now, when it does go nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is 2nd magnitude. Now, I can see the North Star with just my eyes. That's all I need from my very light-polluted location here in Mesquite, Texas. Well, I hope it does, so we can see it. Slide Master, slide number 5. Now, if you're looking at the video version of Skynet, this image of the sun was taken on April the 21st from the website spaceweather.com. I think it was from the Solar Dynamic Observatory. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you could use your solar eclipse glasses to see them. That's happened several times over the last couple of years. The sun has just passed its 11-year solar maximum in October of 2024. I presented information about the solar cycle about 4 months ago on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 6. The first quarter phase of the moon was on April the 23rd, just a few days ago. So the current phase of the moon is a waxing gibbous. Full moon is on May the 1st. On May the 4th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 405,839 kilometers. Third quarter phase of the moon is on May the 9th. New moon is on May the 16th. On May the 17th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 358,075 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 7. So on April the 30th, this is slide number 7. On April the 30th, there's a conjunction of the moon and the bright star Spica. Spica is in the constellation of Virgo in the southwestern morning sky. Slide Master, slide number 8. On May the 4th, Star Wars Day, there's a conjunction of the moon and the bright star Antares in the southwestern morning sky. Antares is the brightest star in the constellation of Scorpio. Slide Master, slide number 9. On the night of May the 5th and 6th, there's the peak of the Eta Aquariid meteor shower that could produce up to 55 meteors per hour. It's one of our major meteor showers throughout the year. This meteor shower is associated with Comet Halley. The best time to observe the meteors is usually the hour before dawn, because that's the side of the Earth that's running into the debris. You can get more information about meteors and meteor showers if you visit the International Meteor Organization at IMO.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 10. On May the 8th, there's a conjunction of the moon and the planet Pluto in the southeastern morning sky. Now, you can't see Pluto with your 2 eyes. You can't see Pluto with a pair of binoculars. You need a large telescope and a good star map to find out where Pluto is. And I would suggest taking a look at the planet Pluto, draw with a pencil and whatnot the image of what you're seeing in the telescope. Go back a night or 2 later and figure out which one of those dots moved. That would be Pluto. Pluto's around 14th magnitude. That's pretty faint. Slide Master, slide number 11. On the night of May the 8th and 9th, there's the peak of the Eta Lyrid meteor shower, which could produce up to 55 meteors per hour, but it doesn't usually produce that many. The best time, once again, to see meteors is the hour before dawn. If you want to get more information about meteor showers, remember, go to the International Meteor Organization at IMO.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 12. On May the 9th, there's a conjunction of the planet Saturn, the planet Neptune, the asteroids Pallas and Vesta in the eastern morning sky. It's a crowded morning sky right now. Now, Pallas and Vesta, you'll need a pair of binoculars. I've seen Vesta from inside the Metroplex with just a pair of binoculars, so you could do. Neptune, you might be able to see with binoculars, but a telescope might be a little bit better to do that. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 13. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question or need a fill? Or maybe you just have some questions about astronomy in general. My degree's in astrophysics, I might be able to answer it. Or someone else here on the net might be able to answer your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Okay, not hearing anything. Slide Master, slide number 14. So as the moon wanes in a couple of weeks, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now. And until next time, well, actually, I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ, Chaz, and this is Skynet transmitting on the W5FC repeater in Dallas, Texas, on a frequency of 146.88 megahertz. Skynet is also available on Echolink and YouTube. All right, back to our net control. Billye, it's yours.
Great, thank you very much, Chaz. This is KF5PDS Billye, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. I noticed there was a station on Echolink that was not there before, Alpha Charlie 5 Victor Charlie. If you would like a chance to check in via voice, I will give you extra time. If you don't have a microphone, you're welcome to check in via the chat window. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of time to check in if you would like to do so. Hi, Cecil. I saw that you checked in via the chat. What's your location? Where are you transmitting from this evening? Copy that. You're in Mesquite. So Alpha Charlie 5 Victor Charlie Cecil in Mesquite. Welcome to the Skynet. Is there anyone out there on voice that would like to check in on radio? I'm not seeing any check-ins on the club website check-in sheet. But if you're out there and you have not had a chance to check into this evening's net, please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from.
This is November 8th, Whiskey Romeo, NAWWR, Romeo and Grapevine. Thanks everyone who runs this net.
November 8, Whiskey Romeo, Romeo and Grapevine. Thank you for checking in. We got you checked in. Is there anyone else out there that would like to check into this evening's net? If so, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Gus, W5GUS. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Okay, thank you, Billye. W5GUS here with Space Exploration News for this week. First starts with the Artemis II astronauts. Following their successful splashdown on April 10th, the Artemis II crew held their first public conference to discuss their journey around the moon. The commander described the re-entry as smooth, despite visible charring on the Orion capsule's heat shield, which engineers are now analyzing. The crew highlighted the mission's success as a critical stepping stone for the Artemis III moon landing. NASA confirmed that data from the mission is already being used to refine the heat shield design for future flights. The event marked the beginning of a new era of lunar debriefings for the Artemis program. And April 18th, SpaceX reached a major milestone in rocket reusability by completing its 600th successful landing of a Falcon booster. The landing occurred during a Starlink mission launched from the West Coast, further demonstrating the reliability of their orbital class rockets. This achievement comes amid rumors that the company is preparing for a massive $75 billion IPO, initial public offering, later this year. The 600 landings represent over a decade of progress in reducing the cost of access into space. SpaceX continues to dominate the commercial launch market with a record-setting pace of launches. And April 20th, the Blue Origin successfully launched its third New Glenn heavy lift rocket, marking the first reuse of a New Glenn booster. While the launch and booster recovery were successful, the mission faced a setback when the payload was deployed into the wrong orbit. Engineers are currently investigating the upper stage performance to determine the root cause of the orbital insertion error. Despite the anomaly, the successful landing of a massive booster is seen as a significant technical win for the company. Blue Origin is working to rectify the issue before its next scheduled commercial. Okay, and NASA shared, April 21st, NASA shared updated technical details for the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, which is designed to map the universe with unprecedented speed. The telescope will feature a field of view 100 times larger than that of the Hubble Space Telescope, allowing it to capture massive regions of the sky in a single image. Roman's primary mission will be to investigate dark energy, dark matter, and the search for exoplanets through gravitational micro-lensing. Scientists expect the telescope to discover thousands of new worlds and provide new insights into the expansion of the universe. The mission is currently on track for launch in the late 2020s. Okay, and I guess it's a company called Rocket Lab successfully launched its 87th Electron mission titled Kakushin Rising from Launch Complex 1 in New Zealand. The mission deployed 8 satellites for JAXA's, Japan Space Agency technology demonstration program aimed at testing new orbital debris removal and communication technology. This launch further solidifies Rocket Lab's position as a leader in the dedicated small satellite launch market. The company continues to refine its wall-to-wall launch services, providing rapid and reliable access for international government and commercial partners. The Electron rocket remains the first frequently launched small orbital vehicle in the world. And Hubble Space Telescope celebrated its 36th anniversary with a new Trifid Nebula photo on April 24th, this past week. To mark the 36th anniversary of its launch on April 24th, the Hubble Space Telescope captured a spectacular new image of the Trifid Nebula. This revisit of the nebula reveals expansive splendor and intricate details that were less visible in photos taken 30 years ago. The image showcases vibrant young stars and star dust lanes within the nebula star-forming region. Hubble remains a cornerstone of astrophysics, continuing to dazzle with daily observations from its orbit. The anniversary release serves as a reminder of the telescope's enduring legacy in expanding our understanding of the cosmos. And it had a storied past, a very complex beginning, the Hubble. It was funded and built in the 1970s by NASA with contributions from the European Space Agency. Its intended launch was 1983, but the project was beset by technical delays, budget problems, and the 1986 Challenger disaster. Hubble was finally launched on STS-31 in 1990, but its main mirror had been ground incorrectly, resulting in bad photographs that compromised the telescope's capabilities. The optics were corrected to their intended quality by a servicing mission, which was STS-61 3 years later in 1993. And Hubble is the only telescope designed to be maintained in space by astronauts. 5 space shuttle missions repaired, upgraded, and replaced systems on the telescope, including all 5 of the main instruments. And the 5th mission was initially canceled on safety grounds following the Columbia disaster in 2003, but after NASA Administrator Michael Griffin approved it, the servicing mission was completed in 2009. Hubble completed 30 years of operation in April 2020 and is predicted to last until 2030 to 2040. All right, let's move on to space-related birthdays. April 18th, 1949, J. Apt, APT, was born, a veteran of 4 space shuttle missions and helped deploy the Compton Gamma Ray Observatory. He also performed 2 spacewalks during his career to repair hardware and test station assembly techniques. April 19th, 1945, Michael Smith was born. He served as a pilot for the Space Shuttle Challenger on its final mission. He was decorated he was a decorated naval aviator before joining NASA in 1980. Okay, April 19, 1962, Sergei Zaylin was born. He commanded in 1962, April 19th. He commanded the final crewed mission to the Mir space station in 2000. He later visited the International Space Station as commander of the Soyuz TMA-1 taxi flight. All right, April 20th, 1945, Gregory Olson was born. The third private citizen to self-fund a trip to the International Space Station. He conducted scientific experiments in crystal growth and remote sensing during his 10-day stay. April 20th, 1955, Donald Pettit was born. He's known for his prolific Saturday morning science videos that demonstrated physics in microgravity. He is a veteran of both the Space Shuttle and multiple long-duration ISS expeditions. April 21st, 1951, Alexander Levikin. He spent 6 months aboard the Mir space station during the EO2 expedition in 1987, and during his mission he performed 3 spacewalks to perform station maintenance and research. All right, April 21st, 1958, Gennady Padalka was born. He holds the world's record for the most cumulative time spent in space, totaling 875 days. He commanded 4 of his 5 missions to the Mir and International Space Station. Okay, April 22nd, 1942, Donald Williams was born. He was a pilot for the first flight of the Syncom 4-3 satellite and commander of the mission that launched the Galileo probe to Jupiter. He was a veteran naval aviator with over 400 carrier landings. That's a lot. Okay, and next up is April 20th. Mark Lee, L-E-E, April 22nd, famous for performing the first untethered U.S. spacewalk in 28 years to test the safer jetpack. He logged over 33 days in space across 4 space shuttle missions. Okay, April 22nd, 1947, Alexander Viktorchenko, a veteran of 4 long-duration missions to the Mir space station, spent a total of 489 days in space, performed numerous spacewalks to upgrade the station's systems. All right, born on April 23rd, 1927, Vladimir Komarov was born. He commanded the first space mission to carry more than 1 crew member. He was tragically the first human to die during a space mission when Soyuz 1 crashed upon re-entry. Okay, April 23rd, 1973, Khalil Lindgren was born. He served as a flight engineer and commander on the ISS, conducting hundreds of scientific experiments He also was a board-certified emergency medical physician. April 24th again, but on 1959, Yvonne Kegel was born, a NASA flight surgeon, an astronaut who has contributed extensively to space medicine and human performance research. Although she has not flown in space, she remains a key leader in the astronaut corps. Okay, moving to April 25th, 1961, Frank de Win was born. He was the first European Space Agency astronaut to serve as commander of the ISS. He later became the head of the European Astronaut Center in Cologne. Okay, and our last birthday this time is Denis Medvedev, born April 25th, 1983. He served as a flight engineer for ISS Expedition 66 and 67, participating in the first all-Roscosmos Soyuz crew to the station. He conducted multiple spacewalks to integrate the multipurpose laboratory module. Okay, we'll move to this week in space history. April 19th, 1975. India successfully launched its first satellite, named after the famous 5th century Indian astronomer and mathematician. The satellite was built by the Indian Space Research Organization and launched by the Soviet Union using a Cosmos 3M rocket. Although the mission's primary power failed after only a few days, it was foundational milestone for India's space program. The project allowed Indian scientists to gain critical experience in the satellite design, telemetry, and orbital mechanics. Today, ISRO is one of the world's leading space agencies with successful missions to the Moon and Mars. Okay, April 19th, 1982, the Soviet Union launched Soyuz 7, the final station of the Soyuz program, into Earth orbit to serve as a long-term research platform. Over its 9-year lifespan, the station hosted 6 residence crews and several visiting expeditions, including the first French and Indian cosmonauts. Soyuz 7 was the site of numerous scientific breakthroughs and the first ever spacewalk by a woman. In 1985, a daring rescue mission by the crew of Soyuz T-13 restored power to the station after it had completely lost contact with Earth. The station eventually re-entered the atmosphere in 1991 and after years of successful service. And on April 24th, 1970, China became the 5th nation to achieve independent launch capability with the successful orbit of its first satellite, Dongfang Hong 1. Launched aboard a Long March 1 rocket, the satellite famously broadcast the song "The East is Red" as it orbited the Earth. The mission's success established China as a major player in the global space race and marked the birth of its indigenous space industry. The satellite remained in orbit for much longer than its planned 20-day lifespan, serving as a symbol of national pride. China has since developed a sophisticated space program, including its own modular space station and lunar sample return missions. Okay, this next item was the launch of the Hubble Space Telescope, which we covered already. So let's see, we'll pass that one up. And that brings us, ground control, yeah, that's it. That brings us to Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, and Chad with some nice jokes, and looking forward to those also. So back to you, Billye, W5GUS.
Great, thank you, Gus. This is KF5PDS Billye, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, I'll take a pause for some more check-ins. I understand there was an all-star station that I missed, so I apologize for that. If you are out there and you would like to check in, I noticed there's nothing new on the sheet, but if you are out there and have not had a chance to check in to this evening's net, please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Juliet 5 Golf Papa Foxtrot, Jack in Dallas.
Copy that. Kilo Juliet 5 Golf Papa Foxtrot, Jack in Dallas. Are there any other check-ins out there? If so, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. We're not hearing any, so we'll move over to Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So at this time, I will return the net to Chaz, KF5JHA. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Thank you again. Well, I just want to let you know that Donald Pettit, Gus talked about him as being an astronaut. He's actually been interviewed live on Skynet several years ago. Kelly Miller, one of the contributors to Skynet for many years, interviewed him live. No, he wasn't in space at the time, but I think that's kind of neat that we actually had an astronaut involved with Skynet. Anyway, Slide Master, slide number 15. This Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn KC50ZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012. Yep, we are in our 15th year of Skynet. Yep. So she contributed from 2012 until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Now, some here about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations. So Ms. Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Centaurus, a Centaur. The constellation Centaurus represents the Centaur Chiron from Greek mythology. Chiron was the leader of the Centaurs, a race of half man, half horse creatures. In mythology, Centaurs had a reputation of being savage, but Chiron was a notable exception. I quote from the Star Lore Handbook: "He was a wise and benevolent and taught humans many arts and skills, and is credited with the design of the constellation figures themselves." End of quote. Slide Master, slide number 16, something that Gus talked about, the jokes of the week. Okay, here's some rules about jokes of the week. If you're over in Echolink, you can sit there in the chat section and let me know if you like them or not. If you're over on YouTube, there's a chat session. You can do that as well. If you're just radio, well, I don't know. I might be able to hear you groan in some of these, even with the radio not turned on. Okay. There's a Centaur walking around in a hazmat suit. Fill in the blank. use the Centaurs for disease control. Get it? Okay. What do you get if you cross a human and a centaur? Remember, a centaur is half human, half horse. Well, if you cross a centaur and a human, you get a quarter horse. Maybe these aren't as good as I thought they were when I wrote them down. So, a centaur walks into a bar. Oh, come on. You've got to fill in the blank with something on that one. The bartender said, "Hey, how's the sore throat?" The centaur replies, "My throat isn't hoarse, but my legs are." What do you call a talkative man horse? A centaur of attention. And the final one of the jokes, here we go. Why did the centaur never get a singing career? Well, because he was always a little hoarse. Or somewhat hoarse. Oh, well. Slide master, slide number 17. How do you find Centaurus? Well, let's start with a star or something that we know. We've already talked about Virgo and the bright star in Virgo called Spica. If you just go south of Spica, go down from Spica, you run into the constellation of Centaurus. Centaurus is not completely visible to us here in the northern hemisphere in Texas, but we'll see a good part of it. We'll talk about some of those things. Slide master, slide number 18. Alpha Centauri. The proper name is Alpha Centauri is Rigel Centaurus, meaning the centaur's foot, which is derived from the star's position in the constellation of the constellation. Alpha Centauri is not visible from Dallas. It's just too far south to be seen from this latitude. However, it is theologically visible from Brownsville, transiting at about 3.4 degrees above the horizon from Brownsville. Alpha Centauri is a triple star system and is famous for being the closest star system to the Sun at 4.34 light years away. It's the third brightest star in the sky, as seen from the Earth, shining at a magnitude of 0.27 magnitude. Only Sirius and Canopus appear brighter. Sirius is still in the sky in the evening right now. Slide master, slide number 19. The Alpha Centauri system consists of components A, B, and C, and A and B being close pairs that can be split with an amateur telescope. These two stars are similar in size to the Sun, and they have an orbital period around 80 years, with the true distance between the two varying from 11 to about 35 astronomical units. An astronomical unit is the distance between the Earth and the Sun. It is the star's trinary nature that stands in place for the Astronomical League Southern Skies Observing Club. Component A is a yellow G2 type star, similar to our Sun. Component B is a yellowish-orange K1 star. Alpha Centauri C is also known as Proxima Centauri, is a red dwarf that is slightly nearer to us than the bright AB pair, making that, in other words, Proxima Centauri, the closest individual star to our solar system. It orbits around the AB pair at a distance of about 1 trillion miles, giving it a long orbital period estimated to be around 500,000 years. It shines at 11th magnitude, so it could be visible from the southern dark sky site with a 3-inch telescope or larger. Slide master, slide number 20. We just have to talk more about this system. Proxima Centauri is known to have at least one planet orbiting around it, known as Proxima Centauri B, making it the closest known exoplanet to our solar system. It was discovered using radial velocity method, which periodically it talks about the Doppler shift. You know, You know what a Doppler shift is. You know, something going away from you is red shifted, something coming towards you is blue shifted. You know that if you're standing on the corner and you hear a siren from an emergency unit going by, it sounds a little bit higher in frequency, and then when it passes, it's lower in frequency. Anyway, Doppler shifts, the spectral lines of host star suggest that there's an orbiting object there. The discovery of Proxima Centauri b was announced in August of 2016 by the European Southern Observatory. The exoplanet's exact mass has not yet been determined, but is believed to be somewhere between 1.3 to 3 times the mass of the Earth. So it's not a giant planet like Jupiter. It orbits Proxima at a distance of 4.6 million miles with a period of 11.2 Earth days. Proxima Centauri b is indeed from anywhere in the Alpha Centauri system, triple star system. It would appear, the Earth sun would appear as bright as a 0.4 magnitude star in the constellation of Cassiopeia, near the Cassiopeia-Perseus border. Yep, wouldn't it be nice to stand on another planet somewhere close by and see what Earth and the sun look like? And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 21. Beta Centauri is also known as Hadar. Hadar is the Arabic word for ground, which derives the fact that the ancient times Beta Centauri was always closer to the horizon when it was visible. Beta Centauri is not visible from Dallas as well. It is also near theoretical, well, maybe visible from Brownsville, transiting about 3.8 degrees above the horizon. Beta Centauri is a blue-white B1 star, similar to Rigel and the constellation of Orion the Hunter. It is about 490 light years in distance, and it shines at a magnitude of 0.66, making it the 10th brightest star in the sky. P Centauri is also a variable star and varies over a 90-day period of time with a magnitude of 5.5 at its brightest. So around 9th magnitude is Venus. T Centauri is easily visible from the latitude of Dallas. It is in the northern part of the constellation of Centauri. Slide Master, slide number 22. Omega Centauri, also known as NGC 5139, is the famous globular cluster of the southern sky. Omega is widely believed to be the largest and brightest and probably the closest of all the globular clusters surrounding the Milky Way. From clear dark skies, Omega Centauri can be easily seen with just your two eyes. I've seen it with just my two eyes before. It shines at about magnitude 3.7. Assuming that you're far enough south to easily view it. The Texas Star Party, yep, I talked about that earlier, is held at the Prude Range in Fort Davis, Texas, and starts, well, in a couple of weeks. Is a great location to see Omega Centauri. I look forward to seeing it when I visit there in a couple of weeks. Also, you can see it from the Davis Mountain State Park, which is right beside the Prude Ranch near Fort Davis. Now, it's even easier to see at Big Bend National Park, which is even further south. Omega Centauri can be seen at the Texas Astronomical Society observing site in Atoka, Oklahoma. Yep, even there you can see it. It's kind of low, but you can see it. Walter Scott Houston, longtime columnist of the Sky Wonders column in the Sky and Telescope magazine, summarized it that he could at least theoretically be visible in locations such as New York, or Pittsburgh, or Cincinnati, or San Francisco. Walter Scott Houston also wrote of sightings from Bird City, Kansas, at a latitude 39 degrees 45 minutes. Pittsburgh, wow, and California, at latitude 41 degrees, and even near the California-Oregon border. Walter Scott Houston also saw it from himself from East Haddington, Connecticut. Wow, that's pretty interesting. Slide Master, slide number 23. Centaurus A, also known as NGC 5128, sometimes called the Hamburger Galaxy, although that nickname appears to be more used for NGC 3628 in Leo, the third member of the Leo trio, with M65 and M66 being the other two members of the Leo trio. NGC 5128 is about 5 degrees due north of the Omega Centauri, so it can be easily seen from the latitude of Dallas right here, and it shines at magnitude 6.7. So it is viewable in binoculars, and I've seen it in binoculars. Stephen James Amiro notes that NGC 5128 is the most dynamic and intriguing galaxy in the heavens. It is virtually a superlative in the very region of the electromagnetic spectrum, in every region of the electromagnetic spectrum. It is, by far, the nearest and most violent Seyfert-type galaxy known, and is one of the most intense radio sources in the heavens. It is a wellspring of infrared, X-ray, and gamma ray radiation. That's the end of his quote. Wow. It's a galaxy you need to see. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 24. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Centaurus, the Centaur. I've given you just a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 96 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects from an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen from the Astronomical League in a year. And Slide Master, slide number 25, that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Centaurus the Centaur. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for their research on and words on the constellation deep sky objects that I use and I borrow and I steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now next week we'll take a look at two constellations, Crater the Cup and Corvus the Crow, that are really close to Centaurus. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Chaz saying good night in 73. Back to our net control. Billye, it's yours.
Great, thank you, Chaz. This is KFI-PDS Billye, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up, we've got a twofer. We've got space launches of the week and satellite passages over the next few days, handled by Tom, KE5ICX. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to you, Tom. So this is to KE5ICX from KF5PDS.
Thank you again, Billye. This is KE5ICX. Well, let's see. What do we have? April 27th, we have a Falcon Heavy launch of Viasat 3 F3. This is from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy. A Falcon Heavy rocket will launch VisSat's next communication satellite called VisSat 3 F3. It's the third in a 3-satellite series, which will be launched in geosynchronous transfer orbit. The rocket features 2 Falcon side boosters and 1 core booster, the latter of which will be extended. The 2 side boosters, the 1072 and 1075, launching for the 22nd and second time, will target landings back at Landing Zone 2 and Landing Zone 40 at Cape Canaveral. April 27-28 will be an Atlas V launch of the Amazon Leo 6 from Cape Canaveral, SLC 41. There will be a batch of 29 broadband internet satellites for Amazon's Leo's low Earth orbit constellation. This is the 7th of 9 Atlas V rockets purchased by Amazon to fly these satellites. April 28th, Ariane 6 will launch with Leo Europe 2. This is another big rocket, by the way. This will be from Kourou, French Guiana. The Ariane 6 rocket, flying in its 64 configuration, will launch 32 Amazon Leo satellites into low Earth orbit. This will be the second flight of the Ariane 64 rocket, which features 4 boosters. The mission is designated VA-268 non-LEO satellites. This was previously called Project Kuiper, which I've been talking about last year. I wondered about that because Kuiper disappeared and LEO appeared. This was the explanation. They renamed it. Okay, April 29th will be a Falcon 9 launch of Starlink 17-36. This will be a batch of 25 Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites launching from Vandenberg. The first stage booster will return for landing for the 33rd time on a drone ship. Let's see, we also have, I got some time, a Vega C launch. No launch time is announced or date. Europe's spaceport CLARREO, French Guiana, will launch the Vega C rocket, which will launch the SMILE mission, a collaboration between European Space Agency, Chinese Academy of Science. The SMILE, or Solar Wind Magnetosphere Ionosphere Link Explorer, is set to deploy the rocket 57 minutes after liftoff and deploy solar arrays within 10 minutes after that. Its planned mission of life is 3 years and will operate a highly elliptical Earth orbit. According to ESA, SMILE will use 4 science instruments to study how Earth responds to solar wind from the sun. This will improve our understanding of solar storms, geomagnetic storms, and the science of space weather. Then we have, coming up in the fourth quarter 2026, Vulcan Centaur Dream Chaser 1. This is the rocket that will launch for its second demonstration flight of the Sierra Space Dream Chaser cargo vehicle for the International Space Station. Dream Chaser is a lifting body resupply spacecraft that will launch on top of a rocket and land on a runway. This will be Dream Chaser's first flight into space. Vulcan Centaur rocket will fly in a BC-4L configuration with Atlas V Boeing Starliner 1 flight one of these days. This will be from SLC 41. No date has been selected yet. It will launch on an Atlas V rocket, the CST-100 Starliner spacecraft to the International Space Station. Originally planned as the first post-certification flight with a 4-person crew, this will instead be an uncrewed cargo flight to test changes to this vehicle made in the aftermath of the crewed flight that launched in 2024. There aren't a lot of passes coming up. I have the ISS pretty much has nothing. It's very low passes overhead. Tiangong, the Chinese space station, does have 1 pass we can talk about this evening. This one will be on May 2nd. It's minus 1.4 magnitude at 5:21 in the morning. It'll reach its highest point at 5:22 at 41 degrees. And then it will fall to the east-northeast at 5:24, also at 10 degrees. You can get all the information on satellite passes, including amateur satellite passes, by going to heavens-above.com. Plug in your city and state, or you can put in your longitude and latitude if you feel so inclined. And it will provide all of the information customized to your specific location. No special software is needed, just a simple browser to make that happen. Okay, Billy, well, that's it from me. Back to you. This is KE5 ICX.
Great, thanks very much, Tom. Yeah, we just have a few minutes left, so I will take a final round of check-ins. I don't see any new check-ins over on the club website check-in sheet, but if you're out there and you have not had a chance to check into this evening's net, please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from. Final round of check-ins.
This is Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato, W5 DLT, Bill, Garland.
This is November 8th, Whiskey Romeo, Romeo Grapevine.
Great. W5BLT, Bill and Garland got you checked in, and Romy, I've got you checked in from earlier. Were you rechecking for a comment?
Sorry, Billy, I thought it was Afterglow already. I am very sorry. NAWR.
No worries at all. Once again, do we have any final check-ins? Last call for check-ins. Okay, if you're wanting to check in just to get in for the count, when the call sign name and where you're transmitting from. Last call.
Whiskey 2, Charlie Bravo India, Ron from Fairview.
WW2 CBI, Ron in Fairview. Man, it's good to hear your voice. Haven't heard from you in a long time. Glad to hear you. Got you checked in. Do we have any other check-ins for this evening's net? If so, please come out with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Last call.
Normal state.
Not hearing any. Does anybody have at checked-in stations have any remarks or questions or need any fills? All right, so tonight we had 21 hams participating on the air. Thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5PDS Billye, and I'll be closing the net at 22:30 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73 and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And stick around in about 5 minutes. We'll be doing the Afterglow movie net, where we'll be talking about Day After Tomorrow into Infinity from 1975. 73, everybody.
Yeah, I got sidetracked by the weather here. Wife's got Channel 5 on and, Channel 11 and Channel 4 on. We bring the little TV in the living room, so two of them. And everyone be safe out there, and yeah, sorry for checking in twice there. Standing by for Afterglow, NAWR.
Hey, Romy, since you live further west than I do you know a good frequency for Fort Worth Races or Tarrant County Aries?
Yeah. Fort Worth Races is 146.92, 110.9. And I think I don't know if it's officially called Fort Worth Races. I think it's Fort Worth Races took over. It used to be Tarrant Races or vice versa, but nonetheless, it pretty much covers the whole county. And they got a little sub, the Grapevine EOC uses one of the NetArc repeaters. Hearst EOC uses the Hearst Club, and then, the little feeders there. So, I mean, you're familiar with the process. NAWR.
Okay, very good. I've been listening to 14694. I'll try listening to 14692. I was just really surprised not to hear anything when they've got a severe thunderstorm and a tornado warning, and it's like, huh? Where are you people? Yeah, I'll email you if you have more questions, but yeah, I want to update the list of frequencies in the Cloud Cowboy as soon as I can, because they seem to be a little old. NT5TM.
No, you're right, Tony. I'm quick, Ian. You're right. 14694 is race season, Tarrant County. 92 is Denton County, the Cars Club. So, yeah, 14694. And I'm surprised they didn't bring it up. But Hearst is rocking and rolling. I heard everything on there, running their little deal, and so there you go. And the WWR standing by for the Afterglow.
KB5VLN.
NT5TM, good evening.
Forgive me, I've been inactive for a while and don't mean to step on a race's net if that's what I've done.
You're not. The weather is just not in Dallas County. So actually, I'm the City of Dallas Race's radio officer. I've been listening really actively tonight and looking at the radar, and I have as yet seen no reason to call Annette. So we're going to talk about a science fiction movie here in just a second, and you're very welcome to join us. We're just having fun.
Oh, that's awesome. We listen to those nets as well, but tonight I think we're dodging a storm. I was attempting to tune into the Tarrant County races, and I was unable to hit the repeater. Are they offline? Do you know a backup frequency?
I do not. I was just asking a friend in Grapevine about that. I know of 14694, but that has been quiet all night, and I can't wake it up with a big gain antenna. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on.
You know, earlier, I got a commercial handout, and there was like a busy light. You know, and I had hit the button to disable the PL tone. There was like an open carrier over there. I don't know if they had some malicious interference or what was going on, but it wasn't breaking the tone squelch. And then I was actually able to key it a couple minutes ago, or a half hour ago on my talkie from here. But yeah, it is strange that it's said like that. NAW.
Hey, thank you, Romy. Yeah, to the other station. That was my friend in Grapevine. So he's pretty awesome and well equipped too.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm definitely close enough to hit the repeater when it's working. It's not working for me. We're in the path of the bad weather, so we're going to dodge. We're running. Y'all have fun with your net, and we'll talk to you later. KB5 PLN Mobile.
Very good. NT 5 PM, clear for net. Do as I say, not as I do. Hi, hi. NAWR.
Okay, hopefully everybody got their bag of microwave popcorn, because it's now time to talk about this week's exciting, thrilling, wonderfully produced motion picture. Well, it's actually a TV show, and it may not even be much of a TV show since it was an after-school special occasion, apparently. But let me tell you about it. This is KE5ICX, and this is the Afterglow Movie Net, where we talk about bad and not so bad science fiction films, television shows, and the like. This one is a rarity. It's called The Day After Tomorrow Into Infinity, and it was produced by Gary Anderson, who produced Space 1999 and all the Super Marionation stuff from the 1960s. It came as a surprise, at least to me, that this was produced. I thought I knew Gary Anderson, all of Gary Anderson's stuff, but apparently I do not. And this was a pilot episode written by Johnny Byrne and Charles Crichton, and it starred Brian Blessed, who appeared on Space 1999, Joanne Dunnan, who also appeared on Space 1999, Nick Tate, who was a regular on that show, and Catherine Levy, and Martin Lev, with narration by Ed Bishop, who also appeared as the lead character in a Gary Anderson show called UFO back in, well, depending on whether the 1968, I think it was. At any rate, here we go. It's set in the future where environmental damage on Earth threatens the survival of humanity. The Day After Tomorrow follows the interstellar mission of the Altares, a science vessel that uses photon energy to travel at the speed of light. Well, of course you do, right? After leaving the solar system and reaching Alpha Centauri, their primary destination, the crew of Altares, I think it's Altares, I don't remember, anyway, push deeper into space. There they encounter phenomenon including a meteor shower, a red giant, and finally a black hole, which pulls the ship into another universe. Originally commissioned to produce a child-friendly introduction to Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, shown prominently. In case you didn't know, E equals mc squared, you know, very high math here. Anderson and Byrne conceived The Day After Tomorrow as a pilot for a TV series with the episode titled Into Infinity. Anderson was ultimately unable to raise funding for additional episodes, making I lost my place, the pilot a standalone special. With the cast and crew that included veterans of the earlier Anderson productions, The Day After Tomorrow was filmed between July and September of '75. This comprised 10 days of principal photography and 6 weeks of special effects shooting. The visual style of Space 1999 provided inspiration for both effects artists who built the scale models and production designer Reg Hill, who recycled sets from Space 1999 to create the interiors. The theme music was composed by newcomer Derek Wadsworth and did create a bit of a stir. The Day After Tomorrow was first broadcast in the United States in December of '75 as a third episode of NBC's after-school series Special Treat. I did not know that. In the UK, it was transmitted on BBC One as a special, first in December of '76 and then again in December of '77. A re-edited version aired on BBC 4 in November of 2014. Critical responses to The Day After Tomorrow have been mixed. While it models effects and music have been praised, it had divided opinion with the psychedelic images which have been compared to the visual style of film director, get this, Stanley Kubrick. Virginia, calm down, sit down. In addition, the story has been criticized for lacking suspense due to the fact that it was devised primarily to educate rather than to entertain. The novelization by Douglas R. Mason was canceled after the planned TV series failed to appear. A new novelization by Gregory L. Norris was published in 2017, believe it or not. Okay, well, that's as far as I'm going to go with that. I think we can discuss it. It's a talkie, lots of talking, lots of explosions, and then more talking about the explosions. So this is how we make this work. For those of you who may be listening for the first time, we take check-ins and we ask, did you see the film, or in this case, the TV show episode. Then we ask what you thought about the plot, followed by characterization, followed by special effects, music, and anything else you want to talk about for the film. So we have 3 rounds. So go ahead and start with check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see the film? And by the way, if you did not, that's okay. We'll take your check-in anyway. So let's go.
No one wants to be first. November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony in Dallas. Yes, I saw the movie and danced to it, too.
November 8th, Whiskey Romeo, Romeo Grapevine. Saw it.
I was first last week. November Victor 5 Fox, Virginia, in Fort Worth. And I have popcorn, and I'm eating it out of my official Project Hail Mary popcorn bucket in V5F. Kilo Bravo 9, Sarah for Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I did see this movie and the extra credit.
This is Whiskey 5, Bacon Lettuce Tomato, W5BLT Bill. I'm not going to get extra credit, but I have about 10 minutes left.
All right, well, I guess shorter is better. This worked out well. We have a pretty good group here. Let me get the check-ins as they stand so far. NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. Nobody ever wants to go first. His middle name, yes, he saw it. N8WWR, Romy Grapevine, he says yeah. So I'm going to take that as a yes. NV5S, Virginia, in Fort Worth, yes, she saw it. And she had to go first last week. KB9SOK, Sean, also in Fort Worth. Yes, he saw it. And Bill, W5BLT, he's got 10 minutes left, or about 1/5 of the film. So, let me ask, are there any additional check-ins for tonight's movie or TV show, actually, The Day After Tomorrow, Into Infinity from 1975? Please come now.
Whiskey 5, Whiskey X-Ray Yankee, Randy, East Dallas, and yes, I did watch it.
All right, we picked up another. We got W5WXY. That's Randy in East Dallas. Welcome back, Randy. And you did see the film. Okay, well, I'm not going to delay this any longer. Let me look up on Echolink. Anyone? Let me go ahead and ask. Anyone on Echolink would like to join us? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, The Day After Tomorrow, a TV special? Okay, I saw a semi-regular pop in there, but he may have been from the previous net, and I just didn't notice it. But so we'll just go ahead and go down our list currently, and I will take additional check-ins at the end of this round. So we have Tony, NT5TM, the guy that says nobody ever wants to go first, and now he has to go first. So Tony, you get to go first. What did you think about the plot to our fine film from KE5 ICX?
Well, they made an amazing number of references to Albert Einstein, which is sort of, I guess, it was confusing to me because very few of the things they were talking about were in any kind of question when the show was made, but it did make them sound scientific. They also seemed to be very uncertain about their mission. They were training 10-year-olds to fly their spaceship just in case it took 50 years to get there. And frankly, people just don't do things like that. Would you start a road trip to Miami if you didn't know whether Miami was 2 days or 2 years or 2 decades away? No, you probably would not. So I didn't buy the level of uncertainty that they were projecting. The plot did add more uncertainty later by introducing, something like a meteor storm and then a rogue black hole. But the amount of uncertainty they were projecting in the beginning didn't sit well with me at all. Likewise, letting fourth graders fly a spaceship. So I found the plot kind of frustrating, and although it started off with a really good tight pacing that fit the intensely up-tempo music, you just could not sit down. The beat was so fast. It got slower and slower as it went on because they were clearly trying to, segue into future episodes of these series that never got made. So, it started off confusing but at least intense, and then it became confusing but slow. I can't say that I was impressed. NT5TM.
Yeah, you noticed that too. Okay, well, I've got my comments for that one. Okay, next up, Romy, N8WWR. You said you saw it. What did you think about the plot from KE5 ICX?
Well, good evening, Tom, and the rest of the net here on Afterglow. I thought it was terrible. I found it on YouTube very easily after TechNet. Me and KD9 EPD watched it, and it's a very long 47 minutes. Let me tell you. Yeah, the 10-year-olds, the sending out a radio signal. They sent out a radio transmission. What was it like? The first one was like they gave it like the number was like 15 years or something, and the second one they, in advance, so we get to them on time. They had this all calculated out, and I got the figure wrong, the amount of years, but yeah, this is and I was like, well, this is 47 minutes. They made it like a made-for-TV movie. Would they make this like an hour and a half, like half commercial, half film there? But yeah, it got very slow, and I was scrolling around Facebook and watching the weather on my phone during it, so I kind of slack in there, the dialogue. I'm kind of ADD in that too. So, but yeah, the good thing is that happy ending on like a lot of them. So, NAWWR back then.
Well, thank you, Romy, and thank you for your very succinct comment. It was terrible. I imagine with a capital T. That rhymes with trouble, or however that song goes. Okay, well, great. Next up is Virginia, ND5F. Here you go. This is being compared to the magnificent work of Stanley Kubrick, especially the psychedelic sequences that were just eye-popping. But let's hear your opinion from KE5 ICX.
that wasn't trolling or anything like that, was it, Tom? Yeah, just back in 1975, when maybe the overall general historical verdict was still out on 2001 and Star Wars hadn't come out yet, I guess maybe some person could squint really hard and maybe mistake this for something that looked like something as good as 2001. But, I mean, I thought about that during those psychedelic sequences, but I thought, well, they're probably trying to rip off 2001, but I would never, I would contrast them to 2001 versus comparing them. Let's see. The plot. Well, I did do the extra credit work for this, and one of the things that the guy said in the YouTube video, now I will say the guy who did the YouTube video about this was rather enthusiastic, maybe because of nostalgia, maybe because he was British and this was like a British thing, maybe because he thought it was a lot like the work of Stanley Kubrick. He really thought it had promise, and you know that it was too bad it wasn't made into a show. You said something about it airing on like an after-school special, and I did note in the extra credit video that you sent that he, the fellows did say that the reason they talked about Einstein so much was that the intent of this was for it to be for younger people and for it to be educational, and you know, to maybe be like an attempt at like a junior level hard science fiction series that would be more interesting to younger people. That doesn't ring too far out from what they were doing back then. Even in the 80s, I remember there was a show, God, what was the name of it? It was a short-lived, maybe a mid-season replacement show with this guy named Austin James, and he was sort of he was solving crimes with just nerdy stuff. And there was even one with a rampaging artificially intelligent computer that he had to defeat, and there was a reference to HAL 9000 in it, and me and all my nerdy friends loved that show, and we went nuts for it. And I could not tell you for the life of me what the name of it was, but it was one of those kind of things, and I just thought of that. But I think this show was supposed to have that kind of, let's make this with kids in it, and have a lot of nerdy science talk, and actually teach them about time dilation and relativity, and try to have it be accurate, and all that. So I think that's where that came from. And Tony, those kids were obviously in the 6th grade. I mean, they would never let 4th graders fly spaceships at near light speed. Are you nuts? Anyway, no, it did. We were talking last night about how it had a little bit of a lost in space kind of thing. Like, we're going to send these families into space, you know, and I can't recall, and I should have paid more attention, what the premise was for why they were sending these people to space. It almost seemed like it wasn't like Lost in Space where they were sending like a whole fleet of Jupiters. It was more like, hey, we're just sending these people to see what we can see or whatever. Yeah, it had kind of an auspicious beginning. We had, you know, everybody was happy and cheerful, and the kids seemed super smart and competent for kids, and they got to Alpha Centauri okay, and everything was lining up, and then they were like, oh, are we going to go further? And yeah, let's just keep going. And then I guess they like put the pedal to the metal because it looked like they were trying to near light speed, and then they had the engine, the trouble with their drive system, and the crazy, you know, it is funny how it went from super happy and happy-go-lucky, we're doing it, everything's working great, and it just crashed into it just smashed all to pieces, and then all of a sudden it was somber and talky and emotional. Let's sit and talk about things. You know, and then they got through it, and then they were like, well, what do we do now? And then the black hole, there seems to be a black hole, and I don't know why when people see a black hole, they don't just go the other direction so they don't get sucked into it, but they always seem to get sucked into it. And so, yeah, and that very much reminded me of Lost in Space, especially the end of the 90s Lost in Space movie. They got through their thing, and then all of a sudden they're, like, sucked through a wormhole or interdimensional something, and now they're like, oh, boy, we sure are lost. We only thought we were lost. Now we're really lost. So I don't know enough. Tom, you'll have to correct me. I don't know enough about... I used to watch Lost in Space episodes when I was a kid. I'd watch the odd one on a Saturday afternoon, but I am not an aficionado, and I don't know if that was used in the original show, but it almost seems like if it wasn't, maybe the movie ripped this show off. Anyway, because it kind of ended the way I remember the Lost in Space movie ending, and we were all like, I remember liking that movie and enjoying the heck out of it, because it was kind of a fun, quippy take on the show, and I almost thought they were going to do it. It looked like they were setting up for a sequel, and I thought the robot was cool. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm talking about a different movie. This one was just too short. It was for a 1-hour TV show. So, anyway, and now we'll review the weather, which has been pounding down towards us for the last 4 hours, and as Tony said earlier, is the slowest moving supercell, and it looks like it's smacked right into the I-35 West corridor, and it's just kind of sliding down the west side of Fort Worth. It has barely gotten to me here in East Fort Worth. It's rained a little bit, and I'm quite surprised at how slow that whole thing has been. So that's my review of the weather as well. And I think it's more interesting than the movie. But yeah, lots of disco colors, high-speed fun music at the beginning, a sad thing about a dog. They had to leave their dog. You can't take a dog in space. And then by the time they got to Alpha Centauri, the dog probably wasn't even alive anymore, which is sad. But anyway, yeah, that's it. Very predictable, very definitely setting up for a show with multiple episodes, geared towards younger people, as was detailed out in the YouTube video. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure back in 1975, if I was, old enough to have paid attention to this, I was a little too young for it at the time, I probably would have liked it. But yeah, it's super basic, kind of cheesy, but family-oriented, and, not the worst thing I've ever seen. Back to net in V5F.
Virginia, you should never say that. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, which just begs the question, will we ever see the worst thing we've ever seen? Because there's always something waiting on the horizon, usually a black hole ready to suck us into an even worse movie. So, just thought I'd mention that. Okay, I took some notes. I will make my comments about that. But yes, I am a Lost in Space savant. I know all about it. I don't know why. I just do. I'm even credited in a book. I'll have to show you. It's right over here. I'm even credited in a book with a bunch of other people on Lost in Space. So I'll put it on the video screen if you want to see it, since I just recently found it again. Okay, next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, what did you think about the plot for our fine film, The Day After Tomorrow? Into infinity and beyond.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah. Well, I'll start with the weather review. Yes, it is more interesting than this show. Quite noisy out there, and the sirens just got turned off about 10 minutes ago, so I'm guessing I'm in the all clear. Anyway, yes, this movie, my first thought is I agree. It felt like it was a knockoff of Lost in Space. I mean, it felt exactly like that. We had families getting lost in space. So, yeah, it definitely felt like a copy. After watching that, the special on it afterwards, and it was obvious even during the show,
because I didn't watch the special until after I watched the show, that you could tell they were definitely trying to push some science. It did feel a little bit like an after-school session, but yet they didn't stay 100% true to the science, as Tony already pointed out. There's some stuff in there that was accurate, some stuff that wasn't. So once again, if you're trying to teach kids stuff, shouldn't they have been a little more careful with that? They don't make a lot of sense. And then, obviously this was they tried to cram a lot in a short period of time, in that it seems like the studio was pretty set on this just being a one and done, even though the writers and the director wanted to continue it. And they obviously left it that way so they could. I think the overall basic concept was okay. After all, Lost in Space is pretty popular, and essentially this is a copy of that to some extent. So it wasn't the worst ideal to try to use a show like this to kind of teach kids and keep it entertaining, but it just kind of fell flat with some, just some very bland conversations back and forth, and kind of the unrealistic part of it. But I also believe, too, in Lost in Space, it's been a while since I watched that one. I do think the kids in that show were pretty smart as well, and did help out quite a bit. It's been a lot of years since I watched it, but supposedly the whole reason the kids were there is because of the time dilation and all that. By the time they got back to Earth, even though it would only be a matter of days for them, 30 years had passed, and obviously they left the kids on Earth, and the kids would have been older than the parents. So that's supposedly why they said at the beginning why the kids went. Okay. But then again, there's kids on Next Generation Star Trek. So, hey. So maybe they were ahead of their time. But they tried to pack that 45 minutes with one disaster after another. And, it just felt a little bit cheesy. But then again, back in the 70s and 80s, I was a fan of Doctor Who, and it was pretty cheesy. So it's really about the story. So it didn't bother me all that much, is that it was kind of cheesy, but I just wished it had been a little bit more accurate science and just a little bit better dialogue. But, I don't have a whole lot more to say than that, and I'm very curious to see what Tom has on this, comparing it to Lost in Space. Anyway, back to that, KV9, that's okay.
All right, thank you, Sean. Yes, indeed. It could have been more, but it wasn't. They had a whole universe, a whole galaxy they could have used, and then a universe because it went into infinity. And what did they do? Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Next up, Bill, W5DLT. Bill, you must have been really excited and thrilled about the dialogue and the risky music and everything that went along with it. So, what's your take on the plot from KE5 ICX?
Well, thanks, Tom. This was very interesting. I can't talk about the music yet. It seemed to me like a cross between Doctor Who, Space 1999, and Lost in Space. It just had that feel. It was interesting because when I first started watching it, I wasn't sure if it was Space 1999 or Doctor Who. Well, we ripped off, I couldn't tell. Anyway, I probably would have really liked this as a kid. And I found myself a little disappointed that it was only one episode. I thought it would be cool to see where they went with this after the black hole sucked them into the different universe. But alas, that didn't happen. It was just one and done for him, one episode, but it would have been interesting. The science wasn't real sound, and that was kind of sad. I think the idea at the time was probably pretty good. getting people interested in science and things like that. But obviously, this probably wasn't going to be the episode to do that. So, anyway, but it was an interesting plot, and I don't know why they didn't take the dog into space, because we put animals in space before, so I didn't understand that part. It seems like the dog could have gotten into space with them as well, and that would have made for an interesting maybe the dog saves them from the black hole and alerts them that the black hole is coming towards them, But trying to figure out how the meteors make noise, but I didn't know if the black hole made any noise or not. There was so many weird sounds in this movie, but I guess that's a different section. Anyway, that's all I got, W5FC.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I had that question too. Why couldn't the dog go into space? Come on, they took all those dopey people. They could have taken the dog too. What they couldn't take the dog for a walk? Was that the reason they didn't take the dog into space? I don't know. All right. Next up is Randy, W5WXY. Randy, welcome back. You saw this fine film. What did you think about the plot from KD5? ICX.
Well, I don't have the background that everybody else does have with all these the movies, and the only reason I watched it is Tony mentioned it on TechNet, and it sounded interesting, so I enjoyed it. I don't know if you use a grading system, but I would give it like a B- or a C+, and it's mainly because it was made in 1975, and as much sci-fi as there were at the time, I drove a 1975 Ford van, the extended wheelbase, for over 30 years, and when I got it, it came with shag carpeting of multi-colors. So when they gave the little psychedelic effects, I figured, yeah, they were right on time. But some of the things, like the music, I found rather disturbing and distracting. One time it came on, and it made me think, oh, gee, we should turn the music back on. But yeah, it was interesting to me, and I enjoyed it about that much. And I don't think I've got much more to say about it. It was kind of run of the mill, and I'm kind of glad I wouldn't have gotten hooked to watch any more of a series. I'm pretty sure. Back to Net Control W5WXY.
Hi, Randy. Well, thank you. We'll probably still call on you on the next round, but you can always plead the fifth should you decide not to make any comments on that particular section. So, okay, well, I suspected that, and most of the movies run anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours, which is pretty typical for most movies, right? And people find out about it on Saturday evening, and they haven't planned ahead or listened or seen the Facebook page or any of that, or not on the email. They wouldn't know about the movie until, like, TechNet. So, the thing is that when it's only 47 minutes long, you can sneak it in between TechNet and the Afterglow and Skynet. So, shorter sometimes is better, just simply from the fact that people can participate. I don't know. We'll figure it out someday. Okay. We are at the bottom of the list. I'll go see if there's anybody else out there before I give my comments. Anyone else want to join us this evening? We're talking about the TV special called The Day After Tomorrow. This is not the one that got the Emmy Award. This is the one that is the science fiction space 1999 thing for an after-school special. But that's okay. If you didn't see it, that's okay too. If anybody else wants to join us, please come with your call sign now.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. I did see it.
we got Bill back, N5DV. Bill's been on a hiatus, but he's returned, and you saw the fine film. What did you think about the plot from KE5ICX?
Thank you, Tom. This is N5DV. I'm sorry I'm late. Irving decided to call up the Racy's net about an hour ago. So I've been listening to the Racy's net in Irving, and it just stopped. So I haven't heard anything here. What did I think about the plot? Well, it's they're trying to make it fit into a made-for-TV movie, 45-minute or whatever plot. And so they included some stupid melodrama with they just happen to come across a supernova. What's the chance of that? Like 0.000000001%, I think. But they found one. And of course, then the hero has got to go in there and stay right up to where they calculated he could survive 15 minutes. More melodrama, but standard fare for these kinds of movies. What can you say? It's kind of like the Mission Impossible, like the thing's ticking down, and are you going to be able to defuse it right before it blows up? Similar thing. I hate that, but that's just what they do in these kind of movies. So I didn't like that part of it, but that was been used by many TV and some major movies. Let's see, what else about the plot? They didn't really explain this light drive thing. I thought it was kind of goofy having that meter showing the speed of light and how fast they were going in miles per hour. Oh, man. To me, that was kind of silly. What else about the plot? The fact they had the families and the girl wanting to go and rescue her dad, and they had to keep pulling her back. That was a little bit over the top. And I thought one interesting thing with the plot was they had the kids doing important things. I mean, she was piloting the craft, and the other kid was navigating or something. So I thought that was very interesting, actually. I didn't really understand where the heck they were going once they left Alpha Centauri and exactly why they were going further. What was the purpose of that? And that wasn't clear. I don't think they made very clear what information they'd gotten from around Alpha Centauri. They just kind of glossed over that. I think it would have been much more interesting if we learned more about what happened at Alpha Centauri, and if they'd kind of left off that extended part of the movie, the TV movie at the end, which is just all melodrama. So that's my feeling. N5DD.
All right, thank you, Bill. Yeah, I think this is kind of the general consensus. So I'm going to go ahead and throw my 2 cents in now. A couple of things. First off, education. I thought the education part was interesting in that, okay, the first thing we do is E equals mc squared. This is Einstein's and Einstein's general theory of relativity. Yeah, and I'm going, okay, fine, and then and they keep mentioning it, and talking about it. I think as Tony mentioned, it's like 3 or 4 times they brought it up in conversation. Then they show it on a piece of paper, and they've got this big, long, I don't know what it is. It's calculus for sure, with summations and integrations and all this other stuff. I wish I understood it. I wish Billye were here. We could have sprung it on her and see if she could figure out what the hell it was. But maybe it was a formula for floor wax, like in that episode of demand from Uncle. But at any rate, okay. Then I was thinking about Irwin Allen's The Time Tunnel, and teachers were saying, oh, it's really great to introduce the kids to the history on The Time Tunnel when it came out. Only I don't think they ever watched the show because it was usually with aliens from outer space interfering with our historic history in some weird way, causing goofy stuff to happen. If they had known that, they probably never would have endorsed the program. That's how I feel about this. I don't think anybody would have seen the show and actually said, golly. I think it would have been panned by the critics. Although I guess it got kind of good reviews because it did actually show up on TV, just never monetized as a series. Oh well. Okay. Now, the plot. The thing about the plot is, it is definitely the original Lost in Space plot through and through. They end up on a spaceship. It goes out of control. They don't know where they are. They are bloop, 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 lost in space, right? And it had a meteor shower. Yes, we have to have a meteor shower. Oh, that seems to be a trope that's in every science fiction movie, especially from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So that had to happen for sure. We had the Lost in Space angle from just a plot standpoint. Voyager did that, and that's just another version of Lost in Space because you've got to get them somehow on some anomaly that sends them far away, and then they have to get back. So there's that. Visiting Alpha Centauri, this drove me nuts. You could tell it was a low-budget production simply because they're visiting Alpha Centauri, but like what you said, Bill, they didn't go do anything. They didn't go to it. I mean, isn't there an exploration thing? Oh, we sent out these little, plastic satellites so that they could send information back to Earth, and we're not going to be included? We don't even get the mysterious part of space travel. We get the boring part of people talking to each other and flipping buttons and doing nothing else. I just found it frustrating that it wouldn't go anywhere. Somebody else mentioned the same thing. Starts out really quick. We jump into the plot. We don't even care where the dog came from or where it's going, and we're get on a spaceship with the two families. Oh boy, we're going on a trip in the minivan. And they do get on the minivan. By the way, that spaceship is bigger on the outside than it is on the inside. It looks gigantic as it compares with the space station and everything else, but then you get inside and it's about the size of a minivan on the inside. Jeez, come on, people. Spend a couple of bucks on it. You didn't spend any money on the actors. You could use that on special effects, but we'll get there. We'll talk about that a little later. And when it does go out of control, we have this highly technical thing. They can't get the little stick shift thing to stop. I mean, it's stuck in fifth gear or something, and they can't remove it. And everybody gets blow dried with the air thing, whatever is going on. I guess that's a special effects part, but it happened a couple of too many times. So there you have it. As far as Lost in Space, here you go. The book that in the forward, are you ready for this? Write this down. You can't even get this thing anymore. This is a highly scholarly book on Lost in Space. It's called Lost in Space, the Ultimate Unauthorized Trivia Challenge for the Classic TV Series by James Hatfield and George Doc Burnt. James Hatfield died under mysterious circumstances, but not before. He gave the book as dedicated to, and then the people that helped, which includes me, under the acknowledgments. I'm in the middle somewhere. There's a bunch of people, but to be honest with you, I actually contributed quite a bit to this book, and they only gave me that stupid credit. But at any rate, that's another story for another time. A little bit about my history I've never mentioned on this net. Okay. I think that's it for that. So, black holes were the 1970s version of quicksand from TV shows from the 1960s. so black holes are required to put people in danger. Quicksand, which was never quick, always took the hero, and they had to pull him out with branches and leaves and rope and other people and pull them out. That was a common trope. So I think black holes were used later on, as they did in the Lost in Space movie, which probably did steal that from this episode thing. It wouldn't surprise me. It's the same circle of people running that stuff. Okay, well, that's way too long. Let's go ahead and go up to the top of the list. We will talk about characterization and acting. This one, we go to Tony again, NT5TM. What did you think, Tony? Was this the family that you always dreamt to be, the nuclear, or in this case, the string theory family that we all need and love?
Well, I hope someone else has something more interesting to say about the characters than I do. I could generally tell them apart, yay, so that's, an important thing when we watch these B-movie type things. Can we tell the characters apart? Yes, I could. I can't remember their names, so, a few points off there. And most importantly, did I care about them? Aaron just interrupted there with, let me guess, no. And in fact, the answer is no. I was really confused about why they had to leave their dog behind. Dogs have been in space before. It's just not impossible. It is, in fact, quite possible. But, I just didn't care. I could tell them apart, but I didn't want to. NT5TM.
WWR. Romy, your thoughts on the characterization and acting? I get a feeling we're going to get a second round of terrible. But please, tell us what you think from KE5 ICX.
And my apologies to the net for not being as articulate and as you all are in terms of following the net format and having nice structured things to say there. I took some notes. The characters, I had a very hard time following this movie. I mean, it was 47 minutes. And, why couldn't they bring the dog? I've seen a couple sci-fi, a handful in my day, and there's always dogs around, usually. More often than not, if it's a family, there's a dog. And, backtrack a little bit, got a little bit of, Lost in Space kind of copycat kind of deal going on. And, I'll keep my comments about Lost in Space out of here because it's not what it's about. And then it also did so well back in '75. I'm glad I didn't live back then because basically, there was a couple UHF channels or whatever, but basically it was the three networks, and anything they put on was pretty much it was it because people watched it. And those little variety shows, the little specials, those things were terrible. You watch those things now, but people were watching it because that's what's on, and they eat it up. They eat that stuff up there, but and also pretty cool Econoline there, Randy. So sorry for not following the format so much, Tom, and I'm sorry for being all over the place, ADD. NAWWR.
Oh, no. You were perfectly fine. You followed. Terrible is a fine characterization, especially over the air, and that's fine. You should. Virginia had that meltdown during one movie where the plot made no sense, and I think it drove her insane for a while. I think she went in another room, screamed very loudly with the door shut, came back in, and then sat down and tried to make sense of it, and there was no sense. I don't remember what that was, but I think it's the most frustrated I've ever heard her. She can attest for whatever that, I can't remember what the movie was. It was a bad one, but she managed to survive somehow, way, shape, or form. Okay, next up is Virginia, ND5F. Virginia. What did you think about characterization and acting from, what is this thing? Yeah, The Day After Tomorrow, Into Infinity and Beyond.
At least they didn't call it Beyond the Infinite, then I know they really were trying to rip off 2001. First, in defense of television in the 70s and the 80s, there was a limited number of things to watch, but they brought us together. Everybody was very, very, I remember, I was very little. I was very small in the mid-70s, but I remember the early to mid-80s and the late 70s, and, we all just watched whatever was on, Hee-Haw or whatever variety show, and it was, it was nice. Everybody had something to talk about. I was, with the advent of the new Michael Jackson biopic that's out now, somebody mentioned online that people now who weren't alive back then don't understand, like, how much everyone was, unified, and how big of a, how big of a thing something could be, and how, like, 50 million people watched the Motown 25 special where Michael Jackson sang Billie Jean and did the moonwalk for the first time, and people lost their minds. We were all just so amazed, and it was good times. Anyway, yeah, characters in this. It is very Lost in Space-like. I think they were kind of trying to go for something like that, but a little less. You didn't have the Dr. Smith kind of saboteur sort of character. I think they were trying to go for a little more fanciful and adventurous, and a little less like there's a bad guy, like kind of like Man versus Nature or whatever. We got supernovas, we got black holes, we got the speed of light, we've got So I think they were kind of trying to go for more of a, almost like a kid's Space 1999 sort of a thing. They didn't make this between the first and second seasons of that show, so you had that thing of where they borrowed stuff from the set of Space 1999, and then things they ended up not using after this show wasn't picked up. They used things from this show on the second season of Space 1999. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, but characters, you could tell them apart. I don't remember their names either, and that is a thing. Like, if you can't remember the characters' names, that means you had a hard time really caring about them. Because I know in movies where I really was affected by the characters and the story, there's no way I can forget, like, even after seeing Star Wars once, there's no way I could forget Luke's name, or R2-D2, or Princess Leia, or C-3PO, or Han Solo, or whatever. It really is kind of a good indicator of how good the story was if you can remember the characters' names. Acting was fine. The kids did a good job of being very precocious. And, I kind of wonder, after seeing this, if the flavor of the late 90s Lost in Space movie might not have been inspired by this. I don't know. Because I remember watching that and not having a lot of familiarity with the show, and, just from a few episodes I saw when I was younger. And I remember thinking, yeah, boy, these kids that go into space, and they even did that in the new show on Netflix, where it was like all about if a family that went into space, everybody had to be like highly educated and tested for being super smart and psychologically fit, so I remember thinking that in the 90s movie and the newer show, like these space kids, they have to be like super smart. They have to be like, the family must have been like vetted for their competence and qualifications to go into space, and so it's kind of an interesting thought of having these super smart space kids, that their whole family was probably this is probably honed down to a very small group of people who are capable of doing this, and I think that's kind of what they were going for. So, I think it's set up for a possible adventure, and possibly making these more interesting as they went, because usually in a pilot, they're trying to figure out who the people are and what they're really about, and a lot of times in the first pilot or first episode of a show, people aren't very interesting because they figure they've got more time to, give them a character, depth and all that. So a lot of times it's just setting the scene and you don't get the interest in, that you would get in a movie that's kind of more of a one-off thing. So I feel like that's what they were going for, and, Tom, I love what you said about quicksand. Quicksand stuck around in the 70s and 80s. Quicksand was a big thing, I remember lots of quicksand in probably almost every TV show I ever watched. There was at least one episode that had quicksand in it. So, yes, black holes are like space quicksand. They still use that. You still get some of that space quicksand kind of a thing, even in something like Interstellar or something. There's still space quicksand everywhere. So, anyway, back to Ned in V5F.
Thank you, Virginia. Okay. Yeah, I guess they just move it on into into future decades. It is a trope. I think if you go to tvtropes.com or org or something like that, you'll get every trope known to man and God used in movies, television, radio programs, plot devices of all kinds. It's pretty cool. Lots of interesting stuff. It's a pretty big website, too. There are a lot of tropes, all of which we know. Okay, next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your thoughts on characterization?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. I don't have a whole lot to add on this. Most of them I don't remember their names either. I think the girl's name was Jane. The reason that stuck is because they kept screaming at her because she kept trying to go after her father. What she thought she was going to do, running into a screaming, boiling area, and supposedly this was supposed to be a highly intelligent kid. I don't know, but whatever. And meanwhile, the other boy acted like he could care less what happened to anybody. So, yeah. No, these characters were pretty plain. I think the actors did okay. Obviously we had a couple actors from Space 1999 in this. TV level actors. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but, typically just not super high caliber, but they were okay. But just to have a whole lot to work with there. And as I believe Virginia was saying that, obviously if they were aiming to make this a TV show, then they would have worked on their characters and built it over time like most TV shows. They only had 45 minutes to try to teach you science, to give you something exciting to watch, and try to tell you something about this family, which was confusing. They should have done a better job because at the beginning, we had these two families. At first, I thought they were supposed to be one family. I was trying to figure out, is one guy an uncle, which one's actually married to the lady, and eventually they do tell you. Maybe I missed at the very, very beginning. So it was a little bit strange on that part. They didn't really spell that out. And yes, I agree. The dog thing, yeah. The dog was the best character on this movie, for sure. And they didn't take him. Poor dog. Maybe it's because they didn't want to, take the additional food. I don't know. I don't think they give a good reason, actually. But yeah, I don't have a lot of sound characters. Back to that. KB9SOK.
Yeah, it says something when your favorite character is the dog. Okay. And it's not Lassie, right? Okay, next up is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, characterization, you're on from KE5. I see it.
I think one of the things that helped me remember the characters is they say each other's names a little more often. They talk to each other. Hey, Luke, Han, this is Chewbacca. Ben, how are you? You must go to be with Alderaan, Luke. You know, like they repeat the names a lot. And a lot of shows don't do that, so then you become very lost, especially if you're visually impaired or they all look alike, and you know, so you can't tell the characters apart. Yeah, the dog was my favorite, and you know, in Red Dwarf they had a cat in space, so you know, but not in this movie. No animals. I didn't really, you know, I wanted to see this where it could go with the series, but I can't say that I was drawn to any of these characters at all, except for the dog. Billye 5 PLT.
Thank you, Bill. And I'm glad you have a soft spot for the dog. We all do, even though the family left the dog behind to die on Earth. Okay, next up is Randy, W5WXY. Randy, what did you think of characterization and acting in our fine film tonight?
Put me on the side with the dog lovers as well. I was thinking that the dog showed the most emotion. They were leaving without it, and it wanted to go with them. We don't even know if it was a male or female dog, and I don't know if they even mentioned the dog's name. But on the other hand, it didn't seem like the people were really excited about where they were going or what was going to happen, and then they even had to vote on whether they were going to come back or not. So there was not a lot of passion there, I thought, too. But the dog wins, my vote. W5WXY, back to net control.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. And that's a good point. I'm just going to divert here for a minute because I'll forget when it's my turn. But yeah, it's true. What you mentioned and voting about whether they're going back and all of that, they did that on Lost in Space through several episodes, but any of that could have appeared in the first episode. I mean, you had this template that worked, maybe not perfectly, and they did change the overall style of Lost in Space over 3 seasons, but the beginning, I mean, this is pretty much a blueprint for that show, especially the first 1 or 2 episodes. So, at any rate, I digress. Next up, Bill, N5BB. Bill, your thoughts on characterization, my friend, from KE5 ICX.
Okay, Tom. This is N5BB. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a lot of rumbling thunder in the background here. Some of the thunderstorm activity gets near Irving finally. And by the way, the tornado watch has been extended until 5 a.m. So these storms could keep on showing up all night long. Oh boy. Let's see. I agree with Sean that I was a little confused also about familiar relationships. Maybe I didn't pay attention to the first scene there where the dog was. If I was paying more attention, maybe they gave some clues, but I missed it. And so when I saw the boy and the girl interacting, at first I thought they were brother and sister. And then later on I figured out, nope, they're from the 2 different families. And so I wish they somehow made it different. Like maybe if one family had been wearing yellow clothes and the other family had been wearing blue clothes or something. But I also kind of was confused by that. This is N5BB. Let's see. Characterization. The kids are kind of interesting. The boy was kind of taciturn. He was kind of hiding his thoughts for a while. The girl was trying to say, "Well, what do you want to do?" And he wouldn't tell her. And so he kind of had a kind of internal. He wasn't letting you know much what he was thinking about, and the girl was kind of letting it all out. You know, saying, "I want my dad. He can't die in there," and all that other kind of stuff. So they had quite a bit different personalities. The two men were kind of the pilot that went in there was the hero kind of guy. But the other guy was, I guess, doing what he had to do. I don't know. I don't know. It kind of it didn't cover the bases very well. Let me put it that way. It kind of showed some things, but didn't show others. To me, it was quickly written. They kind of checked off the check boxes for what they had to do, but they didn't really get the relationships between the people and how they were interacting. To me, it wasn't written very well. It wasn't thought out very well. Maybe some of that was the acting, but I think most of that was the writing. It's like they kind of had a few plot points, they zipped through them, but they didn't develop, you know, the characters and the storyline and other things very well. And as I said earlier, I wish that they had done some more there around Alpha Centauri. They'd show them making discoveries, and did they find life? Did they not find life? What did they find? Did they find any planets? What in the world did they find? What was going on? We don't know. They didn't tell us. They just kind of said, well, you know, information was discovered. It was a great haul, but they didn't tell us about it. And that would have been exciting, I think, to do something. Show us pictures of these planets and stars. Nope. They were cheap. They cut all that out. They had to get to the supernova and all that military and meteor storms, more meteor storms forever. And again, the other thing that was I don't know if it was characterizations or whatever plot, but when the pilot, he was yanking on that control handle above him, he was, number one, why is it up there in the air? Would you be willing to drive a spacecraft when you look like you're doing the trim tab on a small airplane? You're yanking on this thing up on top of you. And that didn't look very good. And it's like, I can't get it. It's like it's frozen or something. They got all the computer stuff, all the electronic stuff, all the computer, all that fancy stuff, and he can't move the handle. To me, that was very hokey. Hokey. I mentioned my aggravation with the melodrama. Nothing fancy on the acting, but they all kind of did the job. But it wasn't very exciting. So, you know, this was it was a pilot, I think. So it's kind of like, yeah, they kind of threw it out there. They didn't pay the writer very much money. That's what it appeared to me. Just enough for them to get something out there, lump it together, film it, and, you know, get it distributed as a pilot. That's all they cared about doing. Anything else was too much effort by the production team. Inside BB.
All right, thank you, Bill. And I'm going to respond to your comment because one thing that's interesting is they did do a novelization of this thing. How you do a novelization of a 47-minute episode, I don't know. It must have been like 12 pages long or something, if that. But it was done by Gregory L. Norris, whoever that is. At any rate. Okay. Let me go ahead and ask. Anyone else out there that wants to check in before we continue, please come with your call. All right, hearing none. I'm not going to repeat what everybody else said. I'm kind of in agreement about characterization as well, as far as interchangeable characters that nobody really cares about. They're all doctors, I guess, and probably the kids are too, and they're flying the spaceship, which is ridiculous, but sure, why not? Let's do that. Will used to do that. He flew the spaceship, and better than Don West ever did, the pilot on Lost in Space. He'd crash it every other week. Oh, well, anyway, and in the movie and in the second rebooted TV series. He's very good at crashing stuff. Okay, I don't think there was anything else I wanted to say about this round. All of the actors, though, I mentioned at the very beginning, appeared in Gary Anderson productions, either behind his voices for the Marionation stuff that he did, or as live actors in Space 1999 or UFO. Those are the other two. Oh, and there was a show that came out in the 1980s, but none of those people were old enough to appear in these others. So either of those two live action shows. All right, let's do this. We are at 11:49, so that's 10 minutes with probably not enough time for everybody. So let me do this. I will take anyone with any final comments. If you've got something on the technical side, that's fine. Music, that's fine. Something you missed on the first or second round, that's fine too. I'll just take you in the order that I receive your call sign. So please come now if you've got additional comments with your call.
Whiskey 5, Lincoln Lettuce Tomato, W5BLT Bill.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo.
NV5F.
NEW.
Okay, good. We got 4. I'll take you in the order that you shouted out your call sign. W5DLT, Bill, you're up.
Well, first of all, my favorite part about this show was the music by far. I loved it. It's like a cross between disco and sci-fi. The other thing, though, is I was having AI describe scenes for me, and they're like just in jackets and slacks or whatever. The thought occurred to me, I don't know what our astronauts wear in space, but I'm assuming they have a little more protection when they're flying through space. So anyway, that's just my thought after AI to describe it to me. Back to W5BLT.
All right, thank you, Bill. No, actually, they were run pull-over T-shirts and pants and no shoes. They wear socks. They don't wear shoes while they're in space. Now, obviously, if they go outside the spacecraft, a little more protection, maybe long underwear or something. But they wear actually less than what that crew did. Okay, next up, Bill, N5BV. Your final comments.
N5BB8, talk about clothing. Did you notice that when he wore the heat suit to go to work on the photon drive, they've got this huge, big bank vault kind of door they have to swing open before he gets in there, making it think like it's incredibly dangerous in there. So he puts on this aluminum foil or foil-covered suit, and the helmet thing, it just kind of it's loose. So it's like two pieces of garments, his suit, and then this face covering thing, but it doesn't even seal up. And there's no air conditioning or air circulation. It's just something that just kind of sits down on his head with a plastic, orange visor. So that whole thing looked hokey. They could have done a better job on that. At least had a cooling unit with it, or throw some ice cubes in there with him or something, or give him an oxygen bottle or something. But that was pretty cheap. And the other thing I have to comment on is, are you ready? And this is a detail now. And if you didn't live back, if you weren't at least in high school when this movie came out, you may have missed this. Slide rules. That's right. I saw two slide rules in there, two different characters using or holding a slide rule. Now, why is this interesting? Well, I think it's because I think the authors weren't really young, and they had been out of school a few years, and they didn't realize the changes that were occurring in the mid-'70s. So let me describe this. I started college, UT Austin Electrical Engineering School, in the fall of 1972. And the professor of one of the classes, right at the start, said, well, some of you may have one of these brand new HP 35 calculators, but those are incredibly expensive. And when you get out of school in 4 years, very few engineers are going to be using those. You'll be using slide rules. So we'll be teaching you. Again, this is the fall of 1972. By a year later, all the classes allowed to use the slide rule. By 2 years later, about 1974, you pretty much, a calculator. But about 2 years later, you kind of had to have a calculator to do some of the tests in time. You couldn't use a slide rule. You could use a slide rule, but you probably wouldn't be able to do it fast enough and accurately enough. So this movie came out right when slide rules were going away. And did they still exist in 1975? Yes. But were calculators and scientific calculators very popular? Yes. And so it should have been super obvious to anybody that was looking at what was going on in the world that they shouldn't have been talking about slide rules in the future for spacecraft. No. They should just drop the slide rule thing, because the slide rule companies were dropping their models by 1975. So it's possible that this was written several years earlier, and that before calculators came out, and that's what happened. But my guess is that the authors of it and the producers of it just weren't keeping track with what was going on, and they missed the fact that these slide rules are going away, and fancy calculators were coming out in the early 70s, and they just skipped that. By the way, Isaac Asimov, I believe, said that the biggest thing he missed when he was doing his science fiction stories that he should have caught up on was hand calculators, just hand calculators. He never envisioned them. He thought everything was to be done by big computers or something. He never envisioned hand calculators. So I think that was the missed thing in this movie. They should have had HP 45 or TI hand calculators in it. When they were shooting this, I'll bet you, but they were just lazy and weren't using a new technology. That's all I've got. N5DB.
All right, thank you, Bill, and thanks for those comments. It sent me down memory lane because you're absolutely right. I was one of those people, as you well know, we were talking about age earlier tonight on the phone, and indeed, I was part of that. I had a calculator. I did learn to use a slide rule. That was required, and then switched to calculator exactly the same time you did. Okay, next up, NV5F Expert Junior, your final comments.
Okay, well, first, I did notice the slide rules, and it made me wonder. I was just now thinking, what year was this movie supposed to take place? And it seems like they would have figured out that they wouldn't need slide rules. But I also thought, well, maybe they're in space. They've got a lot of time on their hands between stops. Maybe they're just using slide rules to keep their skills up. Those look like your standard K&E slide rules that they had there. It is interesting that Bill mentioned Isaac Asimov because I learned to use a slide rule when I was in high school just because I was a nerd. And the book that I used to learn how to use a slide rule was Isaac Asimov's book called How to Use a Slide Rule. And it was a really good book, and it actually gave a really good description of how to use a slide rule. And I borrowed my math teacher's husband's slide rule. He let me and my friend Lee borrow it so we could learn how to use it. And I do own a slide rule or two around here somewhere in a closet. I could probably find them if I really wanted to. Anyway, so let's see. But speaking of that, I did go back before the power went out for a second. It's back on now, fortunately. Obviously, I'm on the radio. And I went on YouTube and I looked up the math, the scene of the math, the big paper with all the math on it, and there wasn't any calculus. It looked like just a lot of arithmetic and algebra, and it looked like, to me, it looked like Newtonian, just Newtonian calculations, but it was kind of blurry, so it was hard to figure out if it was supposed to be like general relativity or special relativity stuff. But yeah, it just looked like numbers all plugged into a formula. It didn't look too out there as far as what I could tell. But it was kind of hard to see, so it's hard to figure out exactly what was going on there. But anyway, I wanted to look that up and report back. And then the weather report, the brunt of the weather has finally arrived, and a few hailstones and some brownouts. Fortunately, the power blinked off and is now back on, and I'm glad because I just don't want to deal with the power outage tonight, so hopefully that won't happen. And I hope everybody stays safe and has a nice rest of your weekend. Back to net, NV5F.
Elvis has left the building.
All right, thank you, Virginia. Thanks for your comments this evening. And last but not least, N8WWR, that's Romy. Romy, your final comments.
All right, I'll be very quickly there. I'll be quick as I can. Yeah, the slide rule, that's a little bit before my time, but I have played around with one a little bit. They're really kind of cool. It's like, but these guys were using these things for, many, many years before calculators and computers and all that. Really kind of cool stuff. Born in '79, so get out of high school. The TI-86 was all the rage there, and the big scientific daddy. And a few years before that, we were writing words upside down on the regular, I don't know the model number, the regular TI calculators. I just got to get my obligatory, that Sean, I can do it every time because I just find it amazing. Sean lives east of me, and he's in Fort Worth. So thanks for running that, Tom. Appreciate you guys. Everyone be safe. N8WWR. Bye.
Thank you, Romy. Thank you all for your comments this evening. I'm going to wrap it up right now. I don't know what happened. I'm watching MeTV right now, and they started Lost in Space at midnight, but it's like in the middle of the episode. They made some sort of weird mistake. I don't know how they're going to fix this, but it's very odd because it comes on at midnight, and this is obviously far into the episode. So I don't know. People make mistakes. You think it's all automated now, but not everything. Okay, I was trying to debate what movies to do next week, and I found this one quite accidentally. It's not really science fiction, but it is written by and produced by Rod Serling, and I remember this making the rounds on television back in the 60s, and it's called The Doomsday Flight. So I think we're going to watch that. I remember this as being pretty darn good. It was a made-for-TV movie, but it was a pretty darn good one. So we're going to be doing Rod Serling's The Doomsday Flight from 1966. There's a lot of actors you'll see in it that you recognize on the flight. So Doomsday Flight, think about flying coast to coast. And with that, I'll say 7-3 to everybody. Thanks for your comments and your enthusiastic responses to everything going on. So we'll pick up where we left off next week. This is KE5ICX. I'm now clear.
Well, I just got excited and got out my Pickett metal slide rule, yellow, copyright 1959, but I bought it in 1972, and it still works great. So I got to play around with it a couple of minutes here, getting excited about my slide rule. What a deal. And we're starting to get lots of thunder boomers here in Irving. So I'm ready to, I've got a storm shelter. In my new house when I built it 3 years ago. So it's in the bedroom. So I've got it unlocked, ready to go, so I could just jump in there and yank the door shut. I'll take my talkies in there, so if I get caught in my, if a tornado comes and tears my house down, I can give a call out on 2 meters. 73, everybody, N5BB clear.
The time is 12:05 a.m.
Just listening in. Good night, Bill and everyone else.